Welcome, boys and girls, to the RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football Podcast, the Gillcast, the weekend wrap-up show with myself, Sammy Reid. You can find me on Twitter at SammyReidFI. I'm joined by Nate Nohling at Nate Nohling on Twitter. And for the third week in a row, Josh, the Keenan Allen of the podcast, really, just with huge performances every week. You can find Josh on Twitter at FantasyADHD. Gentlemen, it was a fine day, wasn't it? It was a great day.
I don't want to have to hear about any of your Steelers love. Sammy's sitting here, the listeners can't see it, but rocking a Steelers jersey, just
you know what, Nate?
He's elated.
You do all this stuff every week. You play fantasy and you play seasonal and you play your MFLs and your Pick'ems leagues and all this stuff, and you root for your teams. And every once in a while stuff goes right? And you put all this money in, but sometimes, you just have to have a love for a football team. And when things go well for your football team and you have got a bunch of GOATs on your team like Roethlisberger, Hall of Famer, and Le'Veon Bell, the GOAT, and Antonio Brown, top 3 receiver of all time, and things go well, dude, you got to be happy, and that's where I'm at. So be happy for me, mate.
I'm glad we got that out of the way to start the show. So
yeah, Sammy, I'm happy for you. But
that's about as interesting as hearing about your seasonal teams that did make playoffs.
They made the playoffs. I can go on a diatribe right now if you'd like me to, but I would do this if it were just us talking so I could tilt you. But there are people listening, and for the sake of everybody out there, I will not subject you to this. Josh, how was your day just in terms of daily fantasy?
It was a pretty good day. It was a lot of fun to cheer on my lineup because my lineup smashed. It smashed cash, and it smashed a lot of the leagues that I was able to squeeze it into. I was a little bit last minute getting my lineup in today, but it's probably for the best. Made some nice last-minute decisions that ended up paying out pretty well.
And Nathan, how are things for you, buddy?
Went all right. I didn't have any of the Trey Burton, but still made it out with a nice little profit in cash games this week. So I'm really excited to talk about the lineups here. We all did really good. What was your cash lineup at, Josh, on DraftKings?
I had 181 today.
Very solid.
Dang.
Yeah, dude. Josh is.
He said he smashed. I didn't realize he smashed.
Dude, he smashed up. This is the second week in a row. Josh has gone ham. I was just a touch behind that. I was 174.7 in cash, and then a couple standard deviations below that is Nate.
Yeah, I had like 148, so I was coming up quite far behind you guys. But
he's still got a positive Z-score, so
yeah,
all's good.
So you did made it. You did profit today, Nate, despite numerous minus EV decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only minus EV was the Anderson over Burton. That's the only really one I feel like negative about.
It's only negative EV because of recency bias. I mean, I think that's outcome bias.
I had too many Texans. I knew it going into the week. I should have changed it. I didn't.
Hey, see, I'm your local Texans reporter. You should be able to check in with me. I can give you a vibe,
Well, in case you were wondering, 3 players from a team that is led by Tom Savage is not a smart, sharp moving.
What about a team led by TJ Wotes?
Nate, you do know that on DraftKings you only have 9 active slots, right?
And one of them's a defense.
So you literally had 33% of your cash game action on the Tom Savage led Houston Texans.
Okay, but to be fair, I think they had the 3rd highest team total of the week, highest pace by far, and a very clear volume towards a couple specific people this week.
You basically treated them like they were the Pittsburgh Steelers.
led by Tom Savage.
Yeah. I mean, that's fully egregious. Let's talk a little bit. Let's break down the lineups. I don't know that there's going to be much to hate on your and my lineup, Josh. They were just too sharp. You know what I'm saying? But we'll have some fun with Nate's lineup. Real fast, what did you guys do at quarterback? First off, Josh.
Yeah, so my initial lineup today, I had Gabbard in at noon at kickoff, and I like Gabbard's matchup, but I didn't like the way my lineup, the scoring was looking when I got to the fourth quarter. of the early games. So I made a decision and pivoted a little bit. I felt like I needed some exposure to the Rams and Eagles game. So I switched. I had Gabbert at quarterback and I had Graham at tight end, and I pivoted over to the Wentz-Burton stack, which clearly worked out pretty well.
Oh, that's so much better than Gabbert, freaking Jimmy Graham. Jeez. You kind of saved yourself from yourself. I
kind of did. But, we made those decisions early in the week. I mean, Gabbert was a good play. He was a good play all week, and I wish I could have seen more of the game to understand why it ran so bad for him. It looked like he was just off today.
Yeah, sacks. He had 8 sacks. I went Gabbert.
I went Gabbert as well. And
I went Gabbert, and I don't feel bad about it.
I don't either. I mean,
I think it's a fine decision. He was just bad today. He was off.
He was 4.8. He missed a couple throws in the end zone, and then his offensive line just got demolished. And he in Tennessee had, I think, 8 or 9 sacks with like 7 QB hurries. I mean, he had no time to throw all game, and it was like at 4.8 from your QB. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to tilt that in cash games. It allowed me to do a lot with what I wanted to with my lineup. So
I agree with that, Nate. Without saying that Gabbert was a bad play, because I kind of feel the same. I don't think he was amazing, but I'm fine with it. What could we have done better there? You know what I mean? Like, could we have possibly gone somewhere like I had I thought of doing Rivers and then going cheaper at another spot, but I just liked all my other spots. And I don't know. There were a couple of other spots that were kind of close, like Stafford and Jameis. I thought were both in good situations. Yep. Do you think we could have done different here and done a little bit better than Gabbert?
I could have. The only other quarterback I really looked at this week was Stafford. But the reason I got off of him was just lineup construction this week. To me, there were so many clear, great plays that I wanted to pay up for. We'll get to them later, but in Gurley, Keenan, and Hopkins, that I just wanted to jam into my lineup. So that forced me down a road where, I mean, Rivers and Wentz in vacuum obviously were good plays, but quarterback I think is almost one of those things for me that almost always comes down to just the way the rest of my construction goes. I don't start with quarterback.
No, I'm kind of the same way. So let's talk then about what we did at the running back position. Josh, why don't you start off there and tell us what you did in cash?
Yeah, so half of my running back construction, I ate the chalk just like everybody else this week and played Gio Bernard. I mean, it was everybody talked about it this week. It was a no-brainer play, 3,100. You stick Bernard in your lineup, and then you go about your business, try to figure out what else you're going to do. My other running back this week, I went with Alf Morris, and I went with him because I really liked his prospective game script this week. I thought that Dallas would win the game. I thought it would be a ground game that they would really just try to eat the clock and do their typical thing where they just sit on the ball. And I thought that played well into Morris's hands. I thought he would see 25 touches, and he came relatively close to that. And he ran a little bit bad, and that Rod Smith took all of his touchdowns away from him today, and Dez to some degree. And, the Dallas passing game thrived, and it was just because they scored 3 long TDs. And I don't know what to say about that other than he just ran bad. Otherwise, he was fine. His yardage was good. His touch volume was good. The game script went the way we wanted. So in hindsight, I'd make that play again 100 times.
So you got 22 touches out of him, 19 carries, 3 receptions for 5.5 against what's a pretty bad defense in the Giants. I was on Morris too. I didn't play him in cash because he's one of those guys, like when I think of cash running backs, I think of guys that you projected the game script to be positive, right? And indeed, like it turned out to be. For a lot of that game was really close, actually, and then they kind of blew it open at the end. But I'm always afraid about what happens if the game script happens to go bad. And I don't think Morris is a guy who can overcome that.
No.
And so you're really gambling. Like, you're not just saying, I think Morris is going to do good. You're saying, I think Dallas is going to control the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I ran good in that regard. I got game script on my side. The guy that I had penciled in there all week long until about 11:45 this morning was Frank Gore. And I don't know why I bailed on him. I just like Morris's play better.
Because he's Frank Gore.
Well, it's Frank Gore, but once I saw blizzard conditions, I actually felt stronger about the running back plays in that game. I felt better because you knew they weren't going to throw the ball.
This is so. I mean, let's just get into it, Nate. Let's not horse around. Let's get, dude. I mean, right before the games, Nate's texting me like, dude, you're a fish. Like, I thought McCoy was a good play until I saw the snow, and then I was like, dude, he's bad process. I'm not playing McCoy. So why don't you drop some reason on us, Nate?
Okay, that game was so clearly pardon my language, but a shit show of a game. Like, it had so much snow. It was an unplayable game. You knew that there wasn't going to be able to be passing the ball. These were going to be two of the most inefficient offenses in the game. And paying 7.2 for a running back who isn't going to see diversified volume. What do you love about Shady? The fact that earlier in the season there was 5, 6, 7 target games. You take his target projection way down to 1. Well, he actually ended up with 0 targets this game. It takes you're relying on a 100-yard game plus a bonus, which is the opposite of everything we always want in cash games. Everything we always want in cash games is not a one-way running back. And paying 7.2 for McCoy with that weather, he literally became a one-out running back. He needed to burst some big plays running the ball. It took him running the ball 32 times in overtime and it's just like, I don't want that. I would much rather get guys with diversified volumes that are going to see 5, 6, 7 and have massive upsides in their target shares, because that's where on DraftKings, like, good cash game running backs are. If you look week after week after week, when there are guys like Fournette, Gurley, and all these guys who have all these diversified volumes, I don't know. I don't get excited about 25 carries in the snow on a team that isn't going to get red zone work because it's an offense that's not going to move the ball.
Now, here's something I need to warn everybody about that's listening to this podcast, because what you said really sounds intelligent, and it really sounds like it's based in reason and logic, and I need to let everybody know.
Put the flamethrower down, Sammy. Put it down.
That Nate, when Nate dies, he's going to float belly up. That's his. That's his.
This play could have – you literally, two plays where a defender didn't fall in the snow, and this game totally looks different. And
who could have foreseen that a defender would fall in the snow? That's unbelievable.
Why would you want to pay 7.2 for a guy who's going to have literally 1 out?
Nate,
and it's going to take rushing the ball 35 times in overtime.
Here's what you need to understand, Nate, that your model doesn't tell you, is that whatever it was 4 years ago in week 14, Shady played in a snow game just like this. And he went for 200-plus yards. And the reason is this. Shady is one of the most elusive runners of our generation. And when you get onto a track like this where he's going to have this many carries, dude, when he cuts and stuff, he is better equipped to deal with it than everybody else. And his advantage becomes greater. And he ends up breaking fools off. And guess what he did? He broke fools off, and he smashed.
If you like to put your hard-earned dollars behind one-game samples, go ahead. While I will continue to use logic, reason, and math to build my lineups and build much more consistent lineups over a 17-week season.
Let me tell you about your logic, bro. I just looked at my DraftKings account and it said full. Because I played Shady McCoy.
It worked out this week, but at 3 point, what was Gore? 3.8?
He was 3.9.
Okay, Gore, I would actually be okay with looking at that because he's going to get so many more rushing attempts that 3.9, you don't need to have a guy have 7 targets to make value. But when you're paying above 6.5 for a running back, you need this guy to be one of those guys who gets diversified workload. You just do, or it's bad process.
Yes, I won't argue with the diversified workload part. I think that's fine. But we had a special case in this game where the carry volume was amplified by the weather, right? We had weather effects to deal with. So, what might have been a 22-touch game for Shady McCoy turns into whatever he got today. He had 32 carries. So, granted, he lost out on the PPR, let's say PPR potential, and I don't know if he really lost out on that. They just chose not to throw him the ball. But what he lost out on, he doubled in opportunity.
Hey, he's just a lock for the bonus, bro. Just a lock.
So
it's not even a question.
I guess I'm kind of in the gray area here because I could see the argument against paying up for McCoy in a situation like this because the pass volume is going to be gone. But I can also see the method behind it, because if you think he's going to get over 30 touches, you're going to pay for 30 touches if you think somebody's going to get that kind of volume, right?
I mean, I don't even know if you could have actually projected 30. I think you could have safely projected 25 to 26, because the reality is the pace of this game was also going to be the slowest of the week, because you knew both teams were going to be running the ball. You knew both teams were going to struggle to move the ball because it's hard to run the ball. It's hard to have a great offense moving the ball when there's conditions like this. That's just like obvious. I mean, that could have been
what was Shady's team offensive share today, Nate? How many plays did Buffalo run, and how many times did Shady get the ball?
They ran 67 plays, and he had 32, so he's just under 50%.
Is that good? That sounds good. I'm
no 47 probably.
I'm no genius, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, he had a 47.76% offensive share, which is very good. But I don't think when you take into all the consideration that he was the smash lock play that everybody thought. I would take a slightly lower percent of a team's workload when there's going to be more plays, more efficient plays closer to the red zone, and passing plays like a Lamar Miller, who is going to be in the fastest paced game with potentially more touches when you average in the pace of play, and passing and being able to get red zone work. I don't know.
Okay, so Josh went with Gio and Alfred Morris, and then you did the 4 receiver thing again. I went with Gio and Gurley and McCoy because I just like doing boss things that smash
you
a
like
bunch of
spending
fantasy
half
points.
of your salary on running backs.
Yeah, I do. I just love getting mass amounts of touches. It just like sounds really good to me. Nate, what did you do over here at running back?
I went Gio, Gurley, and then Lamar Miller.
See, I mean, we talked about this earlier. Like, I can't hate on Lamar Miller. Like, he did not run good. He got hurt in the middle of the game, so he lost some touches there. I didn't think Lamar Miller was a bad play at all. I thought he was a good play. So while I would like to rip you for it, I can't really. Like, Lamar Miller was solid.
And Josh, I wasn't ripping on you for the Gore play. I think Gore is actually sharp when you consider his price tag.
No, I didn't think you were at all.
For the LaShawn, he thought LaShawn was just the lock of the lock.
Yeah, no,
he was.
The weather actually should be taking you off of him. Before the game was better projected than he was with weather.
I have to tell you, earlier today when Davis started saying how big of a lock McCoy was, it started making my confidence waver a little bit. Because anytime you have Nate on one side and Davis on the other, and you're going with Davis, like there's something really emotionally disconcerting about that. So
you just ride with the devil, man.
9 times out of 10, you're going to be wrong on that bet.
That is correct. So maybe I should flip on that. So Miller did not run very good, not literally, but just in terms of like point scoring. He only ended up with 8 DraftKings points.
Yeah, it was not a great day for Miller. I mean, with the injury, I think he lost some of the workload. And then, obviously, the Texans' offense just game plan, I think, went to crap, obviously, after Savage got out. And it was just get TJ Yates to throw a bunch of terrible passes to DeAndre and see what DeAndre can do.
Yates was pretty fire. He threw for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns.
But if you actually – it wasn't like Yates. It was DeAndre.
That's because DeAndre is a GOAT. Okay, so raise your hand if you did play DeAndre. I'm putting my hand up. Nate and Josh. Okay, so we're all not fish. I mean, Gio was a mortal lock. If you didn't play Gio in cash, your process is just all twisted. Like,
well, I tell you what, though, it was looking pretty shaky up until about mid-third quarter for Gio.
It doesn't even matter because everybody played Gio.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
So,
and it's just you take that workload at that price. You just do. And I don't even care what the results are this week. He could have ended up with 5 DraftKings points. It wouldn't change anything. You projected him to have at least 3/4 of the team's carries. They were going up against Chicago, and you projected him to get, 4 or 5 targets. At his price tag at 3.1, that was a absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, you need to stop playing DFS cash games if you didn't play him in cash.
Or seriously reevaluate your process because you have 3 potential places to use a running back at. There's no way you could possibly tell me.
So Yeah, the way that I think all of us started our lineups, at least me, is I put in Gio, and then I put in Hopkins, and then I started building around that. Yeah. Nate, was that kind of the same for you?
Yeah, I was pretty high on Gurley this week too, and here's why. I think in a tougher run matchup, a lot of people I think probably were like, "Oh, I'm kind of off Gurley," but I actually projected Gurley this week to have more than usual targets, and I thought he was going to be more efficient with his targets than usual. And I thought, because LA is one of those teams that actually is sharp and will not pound the ball against a tough running team. So they're going to, try to actually scheme like good plays, and they're going to get their best player the ball. And I just thought I could see him having like 7 targets. And when you can get Gurley have projection around 5 to 8 targets, like I'm really high on that. So I was really, really high on Gurley this week. So he was one of my other locks, but yeah, very similar construction.
Yeah. I mean, he only ended up actually with 16 touches, which is crazy.
He was just super efficient with it.
He had a Kamara game.
He did. Yeah. He had a Kamara game. That's exactly what he had. And Gurley's talent is such that he can easily have these. Like, he was just ripping off chunks after chunks. We actually had a little bit of tilt late in the game, Nate, because he was at the bonus and then lost the bonus by 4 yards.
I thought I was going to bubble cash games with that, and luckily I didn't. But, oh, man, that losing the bonus on that 3 yard that he lost.
I mean, it was unbelievable. He was like at the bonus and then he lost 1 yard, and you start texting me and tilting me, and I'm like, bro, go ahead.
Sammy, I'm tilting. Sammy goes, Nate, there's 12 minutes left. It's fine. And I said, let me tilt. Sure enough.
Sure enough, then Nick Foles just drives the ball down the field against the Rams.
11 minutes.
Yeah, and that was the story of the Los Angeles Rams. So let's talk about our receivers besides DeAndre Hopkins.
Wait, can we just RIP for a minute and just can we vent about Wentz?
Yeah,
that is
so bad.
Just as not DFS related, but just from a football related standpoint, Wentz was one of the best storylines of the season, and to see him, obviously we don't know for sure if it's an ACL, but I mean there was that clip of him trying to take a step, and you could see. I mean, it's
over.
Yeah, it's over, and that's just a bummer. He had an incredible sophomore season, and that was a great run.
See you at the crossroads.
Yeah. I mean, I love football, and I love football players. So when I see a guy like Odell Beckham or J.J. Watt or Aaron Rodgers, or David Johnson, these are some of the best players in the NFL, and they make the sport worth watching. And when all these guys who are top 2 or 3 at their positions go down, Wentz was probably the leading MVP candidate. It's like him, Brady, and Russell Wilson probably at the top of the MVP.
Yeah.
I think we were having that discussion this week, and I think I was like, I think it's Wentz, and it's sad. It's sad.
It's super sad. So, yeah, we're hoping for the best, but it's one of those things 90% of the time when they do that field test and it's not happening, it's an ACL.
Yeah.
And it's so tilting. It has to be super tilting to be an Eagles fan because, dude, the season's magical. You have a beast defense, a great defensive line, and then you have Wentz who's turned into this elite quarterback, and he's in his second year in the league and everything's going great. And then he tears his ACL in a way that it didn't even look like he could have torn it.
I've never seen one go out like that before.
Right?
Ever. It's crazy.
Yeah. Usually when you tear an ACL, your leg is planted, it's non-contact, and it just buckles on you. He was fully horizontal diving into the end zone. And it got smashed. 2 players smashed it. And dude, it
was so bizarre to see that, and then him get up because you see that play 1,000 times, 1,000 times, and guys just get right up and go play.
Yeah,
it was really bad. But hey, we still got Case Keenum, we still got Jared Goff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now we got TJ Yates.
Not all is yes. Now we have TJ Wotes, so not all is lost. We're okay.
You're a glass half full kind of guy, Josh. I like that about you.
Well,
yeah. So besides Hopkins, what did you do at wide receiver?
So I had Fitzgerald, and then this morning I had an epiphany and stuck Adam Thielen in there, and then like you mentioned earlier, I went with a 4-stack at wide receiver, and I stuffed Gordon in at my flex spot because I mean you had to play Gordon this week.
Oh yeah, I talked about starting lineups with Gio and Hopkins.
We both lied. It was Gordon.
Yeah, we started them with Gordon and Gio, and then started building around. Yeah, that's exactly how it was.
And this was tough for me. Like, I know we joke about it a lot, but I am like 100% team math. All of my decisions that I make, I always think through a very mathematical lens, and most of my models are built on multi-year data. And Josh Gordon has 2015, 2016, 2017 data to base on. So he literally was not popping in my models, and I literally just had to jam him in. And it was like, I think it was the first time this year that I just completely went away from any mathematical, he's the GOAT. Jam him in.
It's so strong. And he ran super bad because Cleveland actually had a positive game script.
I don't think he touched the ball in the fourth quarter.
He didn't touch the ball in the second half.
Yeah. He had 3 receptions for 69 yards with a touchdown in the first quarter.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was just great for him to rip off a 38-yarder and then catch a touchdown all in the first 5 minutes. And it was oh, Gordon's going for 200. It's all happening.
I thought he was going to go off, man. I was so excited.
I did too, but he still came through. He had 15.9 for 5.5, so that'll absolutely play.
Yeah, that'll play. The thing that got me back onto Gordon, I wasn't going to play him all week. We talked about this on the pod that I was going to actually play Coleman and pivot off of that. And what got me onto Gordon and onto that game period was that the wind just kind of went away. It went back to normal conditions for that time of the year and that time of the world, 15-mile-an-hour winds. These guys playing that all the time. They practice in it, and there's nothing scary about the conditions they were in today. So at that point, I was like, it makes a lot of sense to play him. The matchup's good, and the price is perfect, and he enables a lot of other things on the roster, so you have to play him.
See, I didn't give a damn about all that win nonsense and this and that. I was like, Gordon's in my lineup, and he's staying in my lineup because goats are going to goat. And that's the model I looked at. I looked at my model, and it said goat's going to goat, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm playing Josh Gordon then. So
Gordon did go for 237 yards and 35-mile-an-hour winds back in 2013.
Word. And the guy can just.
Sammy's all about those one-game samples.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sold. I'm in. Nate, what did you do at the rest of your receiver positions?
I went Gordon, GOAT, and then Hopkins, and then Keenan Allen.
Okay, and Keenan smashed yet again.
Yeah.
I wish Davis was on this podcast so I could rip him yet again, because you're on the text message chain where we're arguing about if Keenan Allen is actually good at football, right?
Yeah, just agree. Davis is just egregious.
What?
Davis, he's just egregious. He thinks Keenan Allen's bad at football, and I'm like,
bad at football.
This dude has been one of the most efficient wide receivers over the past 6 games. Him and Phillip Rivers have a historic connection going on right now over the past couple games, and it's just
that does not compute.
No, what an idiot.
It does when you know that you're dealing with Davis Maddock. And then he goes, and then I give him 4 blocks of texts why Keenan Allen's a GOAT, and then he texts me back, bro, 21 touchdowns in 50 career games.
Yeah. Let me pull up his college stats. He's only 5. Who cares, Davis?
So bad. So Keenan Allen had yet another 100-yard game. I think that's his 4th in a row. He was a great play. He was a great play.
And he didn't even have run good to do it. There was, I think, 1 or 2. Yeah. So he had 8 targets for 111 yards.
Yeah, he caught a long 50-yard bomb and rolled down at the 1-yard line.
Yeah. That could have been a smash.
Yeah.
Smash spot. But can we just talk about we just breezed over Hopkins?
Yeah, we should definitely talk about him a little.
This dude legit had, again, 42.11% target share with a 51.0% air yard share. This dude I have never seen volume like this. And it's incredible. It's incredible.
Nate, do you remember early in the season when he was 5.9?
And people didn't play him. And you told me I was a fish. You said, but his quarterback. And now he's got TJ Yates, and you're paying $9K for him.
Yeah, and gladly paying for it. I'm he's only 8.5? Jam him in.
You know what's messed up is how badly Brock Osweiler ruined DeAndre Hopkins' perception among fantasy players.
Yes.
But just when you hear 51% of his team's air yard share, you go, that's insane. What if I told you that is that's not even his fourth highest on the year. He's had 4 weeks with a higher percent of his team's air yard share. It's insane.
That's just filthy. And Josh brings up a really good point that only Brock Osweiler, not Savage, not Yates, not nobody, only Osweiler could turn that kind of volume into like a bad fantasy player.
Exactly. And I never get nervous. When you have Hopkins in your lineup, he could be in the third quarter with like 8 points, and you go, I don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to end with 25.
Yeah. Josh, I kind of glossed over this. You said you had an epiphany about Adam Thielen.
I did.
Talk about that for a second.
So, my numbers show that Carolina is actually pretty bad at pass defending. And I felt like Thielen was a really good play today. Because he did have a down week last week, and I thought he was a good guy to go back to this week. I thought he would have really good target volume. I thought that game could shoot out, and if it did shoot out, which it did, it ended up being that way, that Thielen was going to be the beneficiary and probably see in the neighborhood of 12 targets. And I thought he could house one. He should have housed another one today. He got overruled by the league office, but he ended up taking the one to the house pretty late in the game there that kind of saved his day because it was a long touchdown. But he did what I thought he could do today. And I thought his floor reasonably today was probably about 18 points, to be honest. I thought he was probably like a 7 or 8 catch for a 100-yard kind of game today, and I thought that was his floor.
I think that he's very Keenan Allen-ish. Like, they remind me of like an archetype quite a bit of each other.
Yeah, I see a lot of Michael Crabtree in his game. Just total professional stud receiver that runs the right routes and can catch everything and just quietly amasses this war chest of yardage at the end of a game.
Love it.
Just incredible hands.
Yeah.
My question with Minnesota is I get scared to play Thielen because of Diggs. Like, and I'm always worried it's going to be a Diggs game. Like, when is Diggs going to come back?
But Diggs always just has like 5 or 6 targets, and that's what Diggs does now.
And that's just the role. It's the slot and the flank, and that's how it's divvied up. And I tell you, if they swap spots for full time, you'd see probably the target distribution completely flip flop.
Which is what they did in the preseason. Remember, like last season, Diggs was the slot guy and Thielen was the outside, and they flipped him in the preseason. And Diggs had a couple big games early, but Thielen really just took over. And they're both great.
Yeah, I watched a lot of that game today, and they are lining up Thielen a lot at the flank, and they isolate him on the flank quite a bit.
They started doing that. Read. Yeah, they started doing that, like, I want to say like 4 weeks ago or something like that. His slot percentage has gone way down lately. And you're right, they just keep going to him because he's a GOAT.
Well, and it makes sense to do that too. It diversifies their offense. It makes them tougher to defend. And I'm checking out their target stuff right now. So Thielen had 13 targets today, got 6 of them, and Diggs had 10 of his own. So really, you can play both of these guys every single week. It's just Thielen is getting the yardage and scores. But that could change at any time. I don't think that's a constant. What I do think is a constant really for Thielen is the reception numbers, and his yardage is pretty steady. So I felt he was a great floor play this week. And for 7,200, I thought it was an easy decision in cash.
Well, he has I think 1 game this season with under 5 receptions.
Yeah.
He had that streak going.
Thielen was sharp. What was he owning in cash? Because I didn't even think about Thielen. Fitz was the other guy. If I didn't play Keenan, I think my 2v2 was like AJ Green and Fitz.
Thielen actually ended up being higher than I expected. In a 100-man league that I was able to squeeze into today, he's 17%, which really shocked me. I thought Thielen would be probably on the order of 6 or 7% tops.
Yeah.
So him being 17 was very surprising, and I'm not sure how everybody else got to that logically, other than why didn't they play AJ Green for $100 more? Because he seemed like a lot more logical play today to me than Thielen.
I was on AJ.
And so I thought there were some really good plays, right? And Mike Evans, too. Mike Evans was 6,900. He made a lot more sense today in that spot. You could have played Marvin Jones right around there. So, it's just I don't know how that many folks got to Thielen. But
one thing you have to remember about Mike Evans, though, is that Jameis Winston is his quarterback. So
yeah, and him and Marvin Jones are like deep guys. Like, they have a wider range of outcomes than a guy like Thielen, who's just always producing. Whereas those guys produce when they catch their deep targets, but if they don't, it's going to be small games.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I agree about AJ Green. Like, I would have probably played AJ over Thielen, and that would have not been sharp. So the guys that I went with Gordon, Fitzgerald, and Hopkins. And Fitzgerald for me was close to a cash lock because he was 6.5. And as far as wide receivers on this slate go, he was like, I think, first in receptions and second in targets and sixth in overall yards. And he was placed as the wide receiver 10.
He's effectively like arbitrage Nuke Hopkins on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Fitz is a cash game play every week. He's almost always underpriced for the volume that he's going to get, and he's a consistent receiver who always figures out ways to make catches.
Yeah, so he didn't end up pulling through. The Gabbert Fitz stack only combined for like 18 points, which is
you were like inches away though from that being.
Oh, I was so tilted. Like Gabbert missed Fitz, had an easy step in the end zone, and just
those 10 points that you leave. Oh, those always hurt.
It was very painful. Tight end, Josh, what did you do at tight end?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I had Graham in almost all week, and I ended up bailing off of that at the last minute. Actually, during the fourth quarter of the early games today, and went over to Burton. I don't know why I had Graham in there all week. I like Graham's prospects. I think against Jacksonville, I thought they would end up having to target him heavily, especially if the game shot out, that they would have to get him some looks. And, I think he only got 2 targets today or something like that. But I ended up going to Burton. Obviously, that worked out. Burton got 2 touchdowns on some pretty limited volume. I had Steven Anderson kind of penciled in for a lot of the week for a lot of the same reasons that I think other people played him, is that the expected volume was there, the pace was there, they're playing indoors. I mean, there were a lot of reasons to like him, but I ended up going Burton because I just liked the quarterback situation there a lot better.
And Nate, we know what you did. Talk a little bit about why you decided to make this decision and jam in that third Houston Texan.
Yeah, I pulled a Sammy, man. I got too excited about a 1-week sample last week with him getting 12 No, I mean, here's the thing about Anderson. I thought Anderson and Burton – I thought Anderson actually had a better projection from a volume standpoint because I jumped in and looked at Burton's last game where Ertz was out, and Selleck actually ran more routes that week. I was a little bit scared because I thought Anderson had he was the clear tight end play for Houston, I thought, and he actually is an athletic freak. Like, he's got one of the higher spark scores you're going to find for a tight end. And I was really high on Houston for the reasons that we talked about earlier. And that's what he was cheap tight end. And I looked at Burton, but I got scared. I thought Selleck was going to potentially run again more routes than him. And I didn't look at route breakdown. He might have actually ran more routes.
He really might have. He got a bunch of volume earlier, but the thing you have to understand is that, I don't know, Nate, you can't make all these plays in a vacuum, right?
I know. It was a bad play because I was way overexposed to a team like Houston. I just got too excited about the overall game flow. And the reality is with DraftKings, shortening these slates, it does get tricky because all of a sudden you look and you go, what team is the third highest implied team total of the week? And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, Houston, they're one of the best teams of the week. Great pace to play. But then you realize, wait, no, they still have Tom Savage as a quarterback. There's a possibility that these guys don't move the football.
Correct. And in cash, it just pays to diversify, right?
Yeah.
Get a little Litecoin, even if you don't love Litecoin as much. Get a little Bitcoin Cash. Diversify that portfolio a bit, just in case stuff happens.
I can't stand for the Bitcoin Cash, but Litecoin totally fine. But yeah, diversifying in cash is smart, especially you just don't want to overexpose yourself too much because it's increasing your variance every time correlation. And I'm totally fine with the Hopkins and Miller just because, I think those two were very clearly where the workload was going to go. But the Anderson, you called earlier in a text thread, Sammy, you're like, I think you're two, and you were right. So it wasn't that Anderson was a bad play in a vacuum. It
Correct.
Was in my lineup construction, he was a bad play.
Correct. Forest for the trees. I played Burton as well. And Burton certainly ran good to get 2 touchdowns and 24-plus DraftKings points. There's no doubting that. He got 24 points on 6 targets.
Yep.
Let's not pretend that Burton was just the lock of all locks. But the reason, I liked him. He freed up 300 extra bucks. That ended up not mattering to me. I actually left 300 on the table when I ended up going off of the Bengals defense. But what
got you specifically on Burton over Anderson? Because you didn't play Lamar, so he would have only been your second. Did you just not want 2 tight end?
Yeah, I didn't even want 2 Texans, and more to the point. And more to the point, I believe in the tight end role in the Philly offense. Like I follow, you guys know who Fran Duffy is. I follow him on Twitter. And every week, he's just such a great follow because I'm a big game film nerd. I love watching the way that offensive coordinators manipulate defenses with their schemes. And when smart coaches do it, it's a thing of beauty, right? It's like watching a really great chess player. And the things that they do to get the tight ends open, to me, is just, this is like game film Sammy, which is like bad DFS Sammy. But I really just watch it and I'm like, look, dude, like they are so good at scheming this open, and Wentz is so good that I believe in this role on this team very, very much. And I've seen Burton play. He's super athletic. I knew he wasn't going to get 90% of snaps. He didn't, like you said, the last time. But I thought he'd get.
Last time. But he was 2,900. That was the key.
And he was 2,900.
He was 2,900, and you thought he could score a touchdown. I mean, you're praying for 10 points, and he got you 24.
Yeah.
One other thing that I think might have gotten people off of him, and I know this wasn't a very valid concern, and Sammy, you were right, but there was, like, Ertz wasn't actually ruled out until, like, 2 p.m. Central Time. So there were people probably starting their noon games who maybe thought about it but didn't want to take the risk. That risk wasn't very high, but I understand it if you didn't want to take that risk.
I saw a tweet early Sunday, like last night, I think it was like Rappaport or, whoever said he's highly doubtful. And then this morning I saw a tweet that said he's having dull headaches. And I'm just like, dude, it's over. Like they're shutting that down. Like it's just.
But I mean, if you were one of those guys sitting on the fence and you look at these two guys and they're projected for very, very similar outcomes, 7 DraftKings points, 8 DraftKings, whatever. And you go, hey, this one I know is going to play. This one, there's a risk. I don't know. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. I was probably going to like do something like go down to like Demarius and go up at tight ends. If that ended up not happening to like Hunter Henry, I think was my backup plan there. So
I had a whole lot of that this year where I just feel like in years past, like there used to be a lot where, later, especially with Sunday night games, that your lineup construction, it really depended on when your guy played. Where this year, like, when was the last time we had a situation where it was like 2 o'clock, all of a sudden news breaks and everybody's changing their lineup?
Yeah, it's been easier. It really has. So,
so you mentioned Hunter Henry. I thought he was a good play this week. I mean, we thought that Games Group would be on the side of the Chargers that whole time. So we thought Hunter Henry might actually, get a lot of target volume this week. He ended up scoring. So I liked him pretty early in the week. And Kelsey was the other guy I had penciled in all week until I decided to go expensive at all 4 receiver spots. And Kelsey ended up seeing 13 targets again today. So his target volume is just locked in.
Imagine owning Kelsey in cash today. Like how tilted. He almost had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like he had one where it was called a touchdown and he ended up going down at the 1. And then he had
Who did end up getting the touchdowns for
Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt scavenged.
I thought you said Kareem Hunt was a bad play this week.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like him.
You had a bet with Evan Silva.
I did, dude. I got smoked on this bet. I was so tilted when he went down at the 1 and Kareem Hunt boxed into that touchdown. I was so tilted. I was so mad. But that just goes to show you, dude, don't make bets with Silva because he's super sharp. And
I just had to needle you on that one, Sam.
No, it's fully deserved. Fully deserved. Evan's a GOAT, and, it just you fight the bull, sometimes you get the horn.
Did Kitchen get you too?
No, Kitchen did not get me. Kitchen took Mike Davis.
Oh.
Kitchen took Mike Davis at Jacksonville. Like, I mean, Mike Davis, like the Seattle Seahawks have scored 1 offensive touchdown this year that wasn't Russell Wilson.
They were due.
1. They weren't due for squat. They were due. We just bet like Mike Davis at Jacksonville and think that he had any chance of drawing out. And it just
Russell Wilson goes into the toughest defense in the league and puts up 270 yards passing and 50 yards rushing and still dominates. Like Russell Wilson is just what he's doing.
This is actually when we get to in a second things that we learned. That's one of my things.
I mean, he's just unbelievable.
Real fast defense and special teams. Josh, what'd you do?
I did. I went with the Chargers again this week. I played them last week, and it was a good play. And today I thought that they were just going to sit on the Redskins, and they ended up doing that. Now, they didn't score a ton. They had 8 points, but, for 3,600, I'm not too displeased with that. The other defense I had penciled in for a lot of the week was Minnesota. I ended up getting off of them just because I didn't like them on the road. And I'm glad I made that decision and just went ahead and stuck with a nice home favorite instead of trying to do something cute there, even though Minnesota was way down in price this week.
I think Minnesota, I had them in a couple tourney lineups because they could easily do well against Carolina.
That was the right spot for them, was in tourneys, not in cash.
Yeah.
I went Minnesota in cash, which, I mean, they were just 2.7. I normally been paying up for cash. The other guy I was looking at was Chargers, but I normally pay up for defense, and I just didn't this week with construction. But now
I was on the Bengals all week. The Bengals Geo stack, I thought that was great. Mitch Trubisky on the road. I ended up going down to the Bills when I saw that weather. I ended up going to the Bills. They didn't even score that many. They only got 5 because there wasn't a lot of passing in this game. So that lowers the ceiling. But I thought they had a higher floor. I just didn't think that Indy was going to score at all. So they ended up scoring 5 points for, $3,000 or whatever. Yeah.
That may be something we want to talk about on the things we learned is in case we get any of these bizarro Blizzard games again, maybe how that affects the defenses and really caps their ceilings. Because if we tell you, I mean, you hit on it right there that the passing volume was going to be severely depressed, and it limits the upside. I mean, it takes away opportunities for sacks, takes away opportunities for interceptions and touchdowns. So, maybe that just turns them into a kind of a middling floor and no ceiling kind of defense.
Which they kind of were. Kind of
like what it does to the 7.2 running backs in the same.
All right, so moving on, Nate. Nate refusing to take his L.
No, you literally just said the exact same reasons apply to the defense, but they don't apply to the opposite side for the offense.
That's not at all what I said.
Volume. Know this.
Yeah, no passing volume, just a ton of running back volume. I think that's a good thing.
The defense do not get increased carries on defense, but the running backs, they still get that.
That's right, Nate. Nate, what did you learn today? Talk to me about something you actually learned other than Sammy was right about LaShawn McCoy.
I learned Jamal Williams, man. Green Bay, he gets diversified workload, and I really, really don't know why I didn't consider him this week.
Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be back next week. He's going to have a CT scan on his shoulder, on his collarbone, to make sure that's healed properly. If it is, it looks like he's going to play next week. That's still up in the air. Do you think that changes Jamal Williams' role at all? Do you think that they lean on him as heavily?
We saw what Tymont did, with Rodgers behind center. So, I don't know. I just know I don't know why I didn't think about it. He was going up against Cleveland. I don't think Jamal Williams I even thought about this week. And watching games, I was just like, what the heck? He's getting targets. He's getting rushing attempts. They're moving the ball. I was just –
Yeah, he had 7 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. He was a good receiver.
I don't know why I didn't think about him.
Yeah, so the case I saw against Jamal Williams, and I had him he was on my short list this week at running back, was Aaron Jones' health. I thought if Jones was healthier than he was last week, there was an opportunity he could take, 10 to 15 touches of Williams' pie and, kind of have his own decent game. So, I put out this kind of dumb idea on Twitter a couple days back. It's like, why not stack the Green Bay running attack altogether and run both of those guys? If you think that the weather's going to be bad and there's going to be increased run volume in that game, why not do that? Now, obviously that would have been really dumb except in tournaments. But, Jamal Williams made a lot of sense. And I think he makes a lot of sense again next week because I can't imagine that they're going to put Aaron Rodgers out there and expect him to run for his life on 45 pass attempts and put his health at risk again. So it makes some sense for Green Bay in their game plan to make it a little more run game centric and give Williams more of the work and probably protect Rodgers a little bit until he's got his sea legs back under him.
It could certainly be. I had the same concern that Aaron Jones, I think they like Jones better, and I think Jones is better, and he's increased health. I could have easily seen them splitting the workload. And it didn't go down like that. I had him in one tournament lineup. I think I played 12 tourney lineups, so I had him in one. But, what are you going to do? Let's talk just real fast about a couple things that we learned this week, some things that we took away from this weekend's slate. Josh, throw me a nugget, brother.
It's I think Oakland is going to be really tough to roster any of those players for the rest of the year. They just look thoroughly cooked. And I was really surprised that they went into Kansas City today and played as poorly as they did. They just had no teeth. And it shocks me because what they did against Kansas City just a month ago and then what they put on the field today and really kind of put on what's been on the field for them since New England just totally deep-pantsed them in Mexico City. I don't know if we can play them right now. I mean, they kind of had some they saved face a little bit there in the fourth quarter and got a little bit of offense going when Kansas City had kind of just shut it down. But I think if they, in a competitive game going forward, if they can't move the ball against a crappy defense like Kansas City, then I just don't know how they're going to do it at all.
Egregious. Like, I'm already looking forward to, I think they play Philly in Week 16. And I'm already looking forward to, like, rostering Nick Foles for.
Oh, yeah, and they've got Sunday night next week, the Sunday Night Hammer, they play Dallas.
Oh, snap.
So there may be some Alf Morse love going on next Sunday night, too.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Next week's primetime slate. I was really impressed by Jimmy Garoppolo again. Like, Jimmy G threw for 334-1 after throwing for 293 yards last week. And Goodwin had another great game. Goodwin was 6 for 106 on 12 targets after going 8 for 99 on 8 targets the week before. So Jimmy G is clearly throwing the ball downfield. He's clearly found a target that he really likes. And these guys play Tennessee next week, who have a bad pass defense. And I think that that's going to be a reasonable spot to get some good fantasy love in.
No, I'm just tilting because that was my takeaway. My takeaway was that Jimmy Garoppolo has fundamentally changed his offense. Because my favorite thing is that he was second among starters this week in average depth of target for quarterback, and he actually is throwing the ball downfield. Where San Francisco used to just be a dink and dunk offense, where now they're a legitimate deep. I mean, he stands in the pocket, he waits for his receivers to get open, and that fundamentally changes the way that you view this team. Even Carlos Hyde, how he used to be getting high targets but low ADOT and all these other dump offs. Now Carlos Hyde's running routes, actually getting downfield with things. So,
but he only had one target today. Hyde did. So
yeah, it was a deep target, 40 yards downfield on a circle route.
Yeah, but he's actually getting down the field. So I don't know. It just fundamentally changes the way that you have to view the San Francisco offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing I did see with Garoppolo, and I saw it against Chicago, and I saw it today, is he does make some really bad decisions with the ball. And so far he's gotten either bailed out on it because, wide receiver just happened to be in the window he was chucking it into, or it just falls incomplete. But when he's pressured, he makes some really bad decisions. And if we think that we're going to play him against a relatively good defense from a pressure perspective, we may want to reevaluate that. Because he could go out there and have a, let's say 180-yard 3 INT game and totally submarine a lineup.
And that's a good point because Tennessee has been getting pretty decent pressure lately. They were the team that got 8 sacks on Gabbert this week.
They made Blaine Gabbert look like Blaine Gabbert today.
And I know the week before they played Tennessee, which isn't they played the Texans, which is not the best judge, but they sacked Savage another 4 times the week before. So they've been getting after it a little bit. It's not like the Niners have a great offensive line or anything. So certainly something to keep track of. The week before that, they played Indianapolis where they sacked Brissett 8 times. So they literally have 20 sacks in their last 3 games.
Well, but Brissett's a sack magnet too. Correct. So, I mean, I think if you adjusted sacks on that, you might actually get 3.
just accent by 38%.
Maybe so, because Brissett, he just eats sacks. That's all he does is eat sacks.
That is correct. This is why I played the Bills defense today. I thought even if he only dropped back 12 times, he's good for 3 sacks. It's money. Certainly reasonable. Nate, I did steal your Garoppolo take, but you stole my Russell Wilson take, so it's all fair. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how good Russell Wilson is. In addition to the 271 and three touchdowns, he also ran for 50 yards. He's just a goat. He is going to get there. He just gets there. No matter how bad, he's like Hopkins, where no matter how bad the first couple quarters go, you just know he's going to get there. He never doesn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, long term, what kind of toll this is going to take on his body. Just basically having to haul that entire offense around week after week after week. It's I imagine that it's probably going to shorten his career at some point because it'll add up.
I was at this party last night, and at some point, all the guys went outside and started just hanging out and chatting, guy stuff, and we're talking about football and we're talking about quarterbacks, and I made the point that I still think is true. I think there's two quarterbacks in the NFL that when I watch them, they move differently than every other quarterback. You can just tell right off, like you don't even need to be a football fan. You can look and say, that guy's different than the rest. And it's Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Like those are the two guys that like just spin and move and like shuffle and throw off their back foot and throw from all these crazy angles and just throw darts. And they're just so much better than everybody else.
And it's an awareness thing that blows my mind. Is he just constantly has great awareness of his own speed, the players around him, and he always just seems to make it out of these situations.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson he has a lot of those traits, and you could see it really early on when he got comfortable, like this second or third week. These guys, they all do a lot of things that they don't even realize they do to avoid pressure and make plays, and it's really a joy to watch. I think you're right, Sammy. These guys are on a completely different level. They move differently, and we really need to appreciate them while we have them.
Yeah, it's like Neo when he finally figures out the Matrix. It's just he can do things that others can't. Any other final takeaways that you guys have here before we go on to primetime?
What are we going to do with Cincinnati going forward? Because they got run out of their own barn today by the flipping Bears.
I mean, they're just not interested in winning games is the thing about Cincy. Completely uninterested. They gave it up to Pittsburgh the week before. When you're up 17-0 in your own home stadium, and the heart of the Steelers defense gets carted off on a stretcher, like you cannot lose that game, and yet they still figured out a way to lose it. They have no interest in winning. I have no interest unless Gio gets another start, but that team's just awful.
Yeah, and even then, I just don't know if I'm going to do it because we're looking at Gio, and today when the game script was totally in his favor, and he still had only 19 touch opportunities. I guess at 3,100, you'll go after that every time.
Yeah, but his price will go up. I haven't looked at like what it is on the main slate next week, but yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he'll probably in the 4 range next week. But it's I don't know. It's going to be hard to roster anybody from Cincinnati for the next few weeks. They look like they're done.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week. There's teams that have given up, right? And you don't want any piece of those teams. And Cincinnati looks like they've just mailed it in. So let's move on to the primetime slate, gents. Obviously, a 2-gamer on Monday night. Tonight we have New England at Miami. New England currently an 11-point favorite. And then on Thursday night we have a craptastic contest between the Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts in Indy. Denver is a 2-point favorite. I can't imagine Denver being favored on the road against any team, but yet here we are.
That's really strange. I had no idea they were a 2-point favorite. But that just tells me that the books don't know what to do with this game at all, and that's probably because maybe they're not sure what's going to be happening at quarterback for Denver. But I think if that were the case, they wouldn't have set a line at all. It's it's an ugly, ugly game, but I think we could probably squeeze a little bit of goodness out of it. Potentially a running back for Denver, and we may even look at a player like I guess we can hit that when we get the positions, but it's just a weird game. I don't know what to do with it right now.
Well, we'll go real fast through the positions. I mean, the thing is at quarterback, there's only one good quarterback, and that's Tom Brady. The other 3 are Simeon, Cutler, and Brissett, which is just puke. If there was one quarterback, Nate, besides Brady, I don't even think we need to go into why he's a good play. If there was one quarterback besides Brady, who would you tend to lean toward?
Simeon.
Me too. Because Indy's defense is that bad? Is that kind of just the –
Yeah, and, I mean, we've seen he can, get by. He can have performances where he just gets the ball to Demaryius, and he's got good weapons and stuff like that. So
I think it's Cutler.
So you like Cutler. So
I'd rather play Cutler than Simeon.
Okay, to be honest. Why do you like Cutler?
I like Cutler because I guess I think the game script's going to be in his favor. I think they're going to be chasing the entire game, so I think they're going to have a high pass volume. And although New England's defense has just totally squatted on passing offenses over the last 6 weeks, I think there's probably enough there for Cutler to carve out something reasonable. I think he can outscore Simeon this week, even with the tough defense that he's going to face. I mean, he does get to play him at home at least, so that's kind of in his favor. I just like him better than Simeon. I think he's got a higher ceiling.
I think Cutler will him and Brissett will probably be the most contrarian plays. So
I think Cutler will be very contrarian, even versus I mean,
I do too.
Cutler's been in some smash spots this year and just
refuses to smash.
He just degassed. He just degassed.
he just starts puffing on Marlboros, and he's like, you know what, bro? Like, I'm rich AF. Like, what do I need to go out there and mess around for? Let's go to the running backs then, because quarterback's just awful. I believe, and take this for what it's worth, because I'm always bad at figuring out what other people are going to do, but I think Burkhead and to a lesser extent Lewis are going to be really popular. And I think there's a huge case for Kenyon Drake. And I know Nate's going to get behind me here, just diversified workload, obviously assuming Damian Williams is out, but Drake sees a lot of passing volume from the running back position, and if they're down, I think he could easily see 5-6 targets somewhere in that range. So
Damian is out as far as I know. I think he was officially ruled out. So I think for me it's Drake for sure, and then I think it's a question between Burkhead and Lewis. I lean towards Dion, but
I do too. I think Burkhead's like the better play in a vacuum, but I think just for contrarian reasons. I think that more people will play Burkhead, so you probably go Lewis just to like take advantage of like the variance in the New England backfield.
I'd stack them.
Just do them both. Yeah.
Play three running backs.
I like that.
To me, that makes the most sense. I mean, I can envision a scenario where New England just goes total run heavy like they used to do against Indianapolis, and just slams both of these running backs into that defense. 40 touches between the two of them. And they just totally snuff them out and really don't have to throw the ball all that much. I mean, that game script is totally within the realm of possibility, and that's one reason why I really like stacking the two New England backs this week.
Well, I could easily see that. And Lewis is kind of – obviously he's not getting the goal line work. That's what Burkhead's doing. But Lewis, the last two games, has run for 92 and 112 yards. And he's breaking off chunk plays, so he could easily just get a long one. And that's certainly within his realm. So I agree. I think actually playing them both on a short slate like this could be a really good idea. Any other guys besides Burkhead, Lewis, Drake that you guys think could be in a good spot here?
Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
Because, they gave Gore 36 or really 37 touches today.
Gore's going to be sleeping. He's going to be sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber for the next 3 nights.
He's going to have to, and that's just to be game ready, for Thursday. So I don't see any reason for them to give Gore really much work on Thursday night. So that either means they're going to be like super pass heavy and maybe 75-25 on their pass run split, or they're going to have to give Marlon Mack 25 touches. And Marlon Mack is such a dynamic athlete, and he's a good receiver that I think he could totally get off this Thursday. I really like him.
Very sharp. Anyone besides those guys, Nate, that you're into?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay, let's shift over to wide receiver. We have only 2 wide receivers above 6K. Brandon Cooks, Nate's favorite wide receiver at 8K, and Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is only 6.2. I think Landry's a pretty solid value. I think both those guys will be extremely popular, though.
Yeah, I think the 2 guys that I lean towards the most is Landry and Demaryius. And then the question is what do I want to do at that third wide receiver spot? So I think that's where I would try to get contrarian.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I like Landry because I think New England is willing to let him take all those short passes and just kind of chip away without Miami actually doing anything with the ball. So I do like that play. I think he's got a great floor. I kind of like I like Manny Sanders this week. I think he's finally healthy enough that he could start siphoning away some of the work that Demaryius Thomas has gotten, over the past couple of weeks with Sanders being kind of dinged up. So, and people are going to be fresh on Thomas right now, right? Because he had a good game today. He had a good game the week before. He's getting the target volume. But for all intents and purposes, for my money, I really like Sanders a lot better in that offense. I think he's a better receiver. He's a better route runner. And I think against Indianapolis, I think he's going to be able to do whatever he wants, which to me, it just kind of leads me to playing him instead of Thomas.
Emmanuel Sanders has been fully fully egregious. In his last 6 games, he has 1 6, 2 3, and 1 catches. In his last 4 games, 15, 12, 11, and 16 yards. He hasn't cleared 20 yards.
Demaryius had a 38% target share with 46% of the air yards this week. And, I mean, obviously, you know, I don't want to go too much, but it's the trend is not your friend if you're playing Emmanuel Sanders.
That's exactly right. It's very contrarian. But the question I would ask is, did the Jets put Morris Claiborne on Manny Sanders? And I would be willing to bet they did.
So I can confidently say I did not watch a second of the New York Jets.
That is very sharp. I guess what I'm saying is I really agree with you, Josh, in the sense that Sanders is certainly not an optimal play. But the type of play, if you're trying to take down a GPP on a 4-team slate, he's exactly the kind of guy you want to go after. So I'm fully on board. I'm also, in that same vein, completely willing to ride with Chris Hogan, who is probably going to be back. Rob Gronkowski is going to be out of this game. He got suspended for being a dirty-ass player, and so he's out. And Chris Hogan's supposed to be back. And Hogan operates quite a bit out of the slot. And I don't think that many people are going to play him because he's such a question mark. Will he get 5 snaps? Will he get 45 snaps? Will he get 1 target? Will he get 7? We have no idea. So I think you want to court that kind of volatility on these slates here.
How do you feel about Amendola? Because I think with Hogan's question of, you know, even if Hogan is playing, you don't know how many routes he's actually going to run because he's still dealing with the injury. And Gronk being out, I think Amendola could be somebody who's going to get a ton of targets.
I like it, and I don't have the data in front of me, but I think I remember that his stats with Rob Gronkowski out of the lineup have been pretty damn good.
Very good. Yeah.
I got another deep name here that might be worth rostering in tournaments, and that's what's his name? Chester Rogers.
Yeah.
Chester Rogers.
There you go.
And only because he's going to be the third receiver playing for Indy this week. And I mean, we feel like that T.Y. Hilton and whoever ends up being the wide receiver too, and maybe Aiken, is going to be pretty much snuffed out by the Denver cornerback. So I kind of like Chester Rogers as a really deep YOLO play at men's salary that could end up getting, you know, let's say 60 yards and a touchdown.
Into it. He gets some pretty legit air yards when he does get thrown to. So Nate, any other receivers you dig on here? Okay.
No, except for that.
Tight ends. The tight ends here are very, very bad. You have Doyle, Julius Thomas. Dwayne Allen looks like he's going to be the guy that fills in for Gronk. And, I mean, who's the other guy? Derby?
You watch your tongue about Doyle. Doyle's the GOAT, man. Doyle in this snow-ridden game still managed to get 8.4 DraftKings points. And if he can do that in that game,
Doyle's going to see 12 targets.
Correct.
Yeah.
and Denver's been very bad against the tight end too. So
I'm all about Doyle, man. I love Doyle.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the highest market share of targets of any tight end, I believe, still.
Yeah, he's the chalk on the slate at tight end. He'll probably be 70% owned, I would guess, just because of the rest of the trash options that we're looking at.
Who's even seeing volume at Denver's tight end? I don't even know.
Austin Traylor,
Virgil Green. I mean, they're just.
Yeah, I would look at probably at Traylor because Traylor, I mean, he's really not getting any targets, but they talk about he's running a lot of routes and that he's getting open. They're just not throwing him the ball. So I don't know. That's kind of a really deep play. If you want to go like super contrarian troll play, you'd go with Fasano. Because Fasano is going to get his 1 target for 8 yards and a touchdown.
I don't think I'll play Dwayne Allen. I think a lot of people – I could be wrong, but I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's filling in for Gronk, like he'll do fine. And I've played that game before with New England.
It doesn't work.
And it just doesn't happen. So
yeah,
I'm off of that.
You get a bunch of blocking tight end plays.
Right.
Well, that's what Allen excels at, right? So, I mean, I still think this game script is totally possible where they bring in – 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends on a lot of these plays and just maul them with the run game.
Well, that's good. I didn't know Dwayne Allen actually excelled at anything, so that's nice of you to throw out that he is good at something. Defense, special teams. I mean, the Patriots are going to be the chalk. If you had to play one other DST that you like in a contrarian aspect, Nate, who would it be?
Oh, I mean,
Denver will be the second chalk.
Yeah, I was going to say it's either Patriots or Broncos for me.
Yeah, contrarian is Colts, in my opinion.
Yep.
Home team on a Thursday against a bad quarterback.
I'm into that. The Dolphins are the most contrarian, but there's a reason why they're 2.3 because it's just not going to happen. They're going to get smashed. I mean, I don't know. There is like a game every 2 years in Miami that the New England Patriots blow.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the thing. If you want to get real contrarian on this slate, go against the Patriots. And that's, very, very low probability, but big pot odds on it. So.
Full Dolphin stack.
Full Dolphin. I mean, we haven't said that many fishy things on this podcast, Josh, so I think that a full Dolphins onslaught should be the final legacy that we leave on the podcast here of just like, hey, listen, we do still have gills, regardless of the amazing scores that me and you put up in cash and Nate, kind of almost did.
Without Davis, it's a lot less of a gill cast, I'll be honest.
That's true. That's true.
Davis is the one that we used to just rip on for doing.
We replaced Davis Maddock with Josh ADHD, which is just, it's great for our equity in terms of like the group making money, but it's really bad for ragging on people.
Yeah. You guys can rag on me just as easily. I make plenty of dumb decisions every week.
Yeah, but you smashed the last 2 weeks. The first week your lineup was rough, and then you kind of got your stuff together, and you said, you know what, I'm gonna go for it, and you had 2 really good lineups.
Yeah, you guys are catching me during my run good.
We went from C.J. Beathard to Jimmy Garoppolo. This is.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
It's a gift from the gods.
You're taking shots deep, and it's working out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they turned Marquise Goodwin from a deep shot artist into a legitimate, wide receiver like Pierre Garçon. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
The power of coaching.
Well, you guys, this was I wish that we had Davis. All you guys listening, you can reach Davis on Twitter at Davis Maddock, and please just go on there and rip him for not being on the podcast. He has no good excuse. Except that he's already worked 10 hours this week, and so he can't go over the 10-hour threshold or else he really starts getting tired. So the reason that Davis isn't on this podcast is, he's just a lazy bum, and please hit him up on Twitter and let him know about it. I think that's really important. So let's wrap this thing up, boys. Really good week. Fantastic. We all won money. The Pittsburgh Steelers goated. This was just fantastic. You can reach Josh on Twitter at FantasyADHD. You can reach Nate on Twitter at Nate Nohling. I'm at Sammy Reid FI, and this has been the Gilcast. For Nate, for Josh, for me, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next Monday.